What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It's been a minute since we put out a video, and today we're going to replace the steering stem and handlebars on my wife's 2020 Yamaha MT-03. Stick around. So this is what we're working on today, guys, and it's currently raining out real heavy right now, and I'm currently working inside my enclosed trailer. I'll pan around to give you a little bit of the view. These are just temporary, these lights up here. And that light is kind of like hanging up there because this trailer doesn't have any 120 volt lighting in it. It's all 12 volt. So this is my wife's 2020 Yamaha MT-03. If you guys been following along, it was involved in a crash. There's still a little bit of damage left, not a big deal, which a lot of this is from the prior owner's key tag chafing the handlebars. You can see here, it's got some chafe marks and some scratches over here. I want to get rid of that and replace them with new. And I also noticed when I had this apart that the triple clamps down in here, the threads on the top of it looked like they had been dung up a little bit. So rather than leave that, I wanted to replace that too, just to make sure that it's safe. And you'll see that a little bit more as we get going. First thing we got to do is we're going to have to pull off the whole front tire. We're going to pull out the forks, we're going to pull out the triple tree, the handlebars. So here you can see we've got a set of genuine handlebars for Yamaha, and in here is the new triple clamp, and I've also got some other accessories that we picked up. Stem, I should say, the steering stem. And obviously for new handlebars, we're going to have to cut the grip off one side so you can get a new grip. We'll start by loosening up the front axle. And we'll take the front fender off. And now we'll pull off the caliper. Yeah, there's that one. There's that one. And whenever I put things back together, I always put a little mark on the bolt head after I'm done torquing it. That way I know that I actually did it. I'm a real stickler on making sure that bolts are torqued properly. Now I've got the caliper and the ABS sensor just hung up using a piece of like tie wire, just so there's no strain on any of the wires or the connections. And then I'm just using an automotive scissor jack and put a little piece of 1/4 inch Luan underneath the oil pan, and I'm just going to jack up until the front tire comes off the ground. And I've got the back stabilized with straps on each side so that the bike can't flip over. There, now all the weight's off the front end. Now we can pull the front tire off. Just to keep all the bearings and bushings together, I'll throw the axle back in it and set it off to the side. So now we can start preparing to pull the forks out, but the first thing we got to do is get these little bands off that hold these wires in place. And we also got to remember that we lowered this bike with a lowering kit. So the top of this fork tube, I've measured it, it extends just a little over 1 inch above the top triple clamp. So when we put it back together, we got to make sure that we do that as well. Now we can loosen the nuts on these triple clamps and work on getting these forks out of here. Hopefully we've jacked up the underside enough so that we can slide this right out without them hitting the floor. If not, we'll have to just jack it up a little bit. A word to be aware of when I was rebuilding this bike, which I didn't know about, is just I happened to see in one of the catalogs this headlight. If this headlight blows, this bulb, $900. Just the fact that this headlight and maybe one other thing could be damaged could actually total this bike out due to the price. Maybe they've come down a little bit, but as of like 1.5 years, that was what it cost. Now we got this one, and then we'll slide that fork leg right out. I want to be real careful because they're black and I don't want to scratch them up. Right now, we'll loosen up this mask and get this floating up out of the way. So we've got the mask just hanging here, and we just got to get the cables off now, the controls, and the handlebars, and then we can pull the steering stem out and put a new stem in it. I'll show you when we get it out what the issue was. My wife noticed a little bit of play in the steering when she was driving it, and I got on it and I noticed it too. And I had torqued these to spec, and I think something just came undone in it. Crack this nut loose. Yep, like this. So I've got this whole thing supported in a kind of a janky way, just so it's not like hanging by the wires and hanging down and getting all beat up. So what I did was I just left the handlebars on, left this upper clamp as it is, and just ran some straps up to my side track and then over to this cabinet just to hold this up. And then I pulled out this retainer that sits right here, and now I'm just going to back off these nuts and then pull out the lower stem. I'll show it to you, then put the new stem back in it, and I'll show you what the issue was on this. And there's this little plastic rubber washer. And this I'll need probably a pair of pliers for. And this should just drop right out. Should, but probably won't. There we go. And this is the part we're replacing it with. But we will have to transfer over our bottom clamps. And I'll show you here in a second why we're replacing this. That's comparing them side by side. Here's the new one. Here's the old one. You can see that this one got tweaked a little bit during the crash. And the only reason I caught that is because the nut backed off a little bit, so it allowed a little bit of play. And that's because I wasn't able to get proper tension in this because of this little tweak. So we should be all set now. Just got to put some grease on this, and we'll put this back up, then get it all back together. And we'll put it up in the same way we took it out. Put a little bit of grease on the bearing race. Alright, so initially it called for a torque of 38 on this, and then you back it off completely and then tighten it down to 13. Unfortunately, I don't have a steering stem nut tool, so I just kind of messed around with a torque wrench and felt what 13 felt like. I tightened this down fairly tight and then backed it off, and then messed around with 13 and then torqued it down to what I thought that tension would feel like. Probably not the right way of doing it, but that's how I did it. Then the top nut gets tightened down finger tight. Then this fits down in that. Now we can put our top clamp in, tighten this down, then we can take these clamps off, replace our handlebars. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do it. There. And we can thread this back in. Then we'll torque that very last. We got the front mask all tightened on. Now we're going to start stripping the handlebars of, the bar ends, the controls, the mirrors, all of this stuff. So then we can just put on our new bars and put it all back together. Here's some remnants of some previous crash damage right there. Maybe I'll pick up a couple new ones of these too, just to make it look better. The throttle side was fighting me a little bit, so we'll just leave that, and it will just slide the handlebars out through it. Might make that a little bit easier. Rather than wrestle with it, I'll just move on to this side. There we go. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Alright, here we go. Got the brand new shiny bars. They look super nice. There's little punch marks in here showing where everything is supposed to go, or at least that's the factory setting for it, and then you can adjust them how you want for yourself, but I'm just putting them at the factory setting. That's how they were. And if you look right here, guys, you can see a punch mark that shows you where the end of this goes, and then you can see there's a corresponding line right there. You just line those up and that'll put it right at the factory location. And right there. See that, guys? Lines right up to that. For now, I'm just snugging them down. We'll tighten them up to what it should be later. With the handlebars all installed, let's work on getting the forks back in. So now that we've got them to the right height, sticking out of the fork tubes, now we got to torque them. The lower ones get torqued to 22 foot-pounds. And then before we torque the top ones, we're going to set the front end, so that means we got to get the axle through it, and I'll explain that process as well. Now would be a good time to inspect your wheel bearings and anything wrong with your front wheel. Whereas this bike only has currently 1,600 miles on it, we're all set there. Alright, now we're going to settle the front end in before we torque the front axle. That'll settle in the forks and it will settle in the front axle. So we're just going to take the weight off this jack, because the bike will be okay on its own, just sitting in the bottom triple clamps just like that. It won't come apart. So this is going to do a couple things. It's going to align the forks and it's going to align the axle. What we're going to do is we're going to push down on the front end to get everything to line up. There. Now we can torque the front axle to 38 foot-pounds. The brake caliper bolts, these are a T50. These get torqued to 26 foot-pounds. I put the front fender on. Let's settle the front end one more time. This bolt right here, I torqued to 79, and I think these are supposed to be 17. And I just got to put my grip on, and I'm going to go over all my fasteners just to make sure that I haven't missed anything and that I've torqued everything to spec, and then I'll put a little mark on them. All that's left to do is glue on the grip, and for that I just take a little bit of spray adhesive, stick it inside, acts like a lubricant, then work quick and stick it on. Try not to get it everywhere. And there it is. And there we are, guys. It is all back together. Just feel a lot better knowing that it's right. Doesn't look like we even did anything. Looks just like factory, and that's kind of how I like all my stuff to be and all my stuff to look. All there's left to do is try it out, and we'll be doing that here shortly. It looks like the weather is starting to get a little bit better and clear up. Sun's starting to come out. Yeah, you can really see it here, how jacked up that is. It's kind of like kinked at the very top, and I think that that's what was causing this not to stay torqued to torque specs, because it was not seating in the bearings right. And the handlebars were straight. There's nothing wrong with the handlebars other than you can just see that there's kind of some scrapes and scratches on them, and stuff like that drives me crazy. And I think the handlebars were like 17 bucks, something like that. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Please don't forget to share, comment, subscribe if you like it. I appreciate it. See you guys.